Yes. So, I don't want us to be caught tongue-tied when somebody comes in and speaks about religion, or questions the religion's aspect.
Okay.
Yeah. Because what I found that is in research, I found in Nigeria, the highest amount of prostitution comes from the Hausa and the Muslims. Highest. Second to the Igbos. Second to the Igbos. So that's the research I was doing on some people's papers. It's quite shocking.
All right, please note that we are live streaming right now. So we are on air on YouTube and also on our Facebook.
Excuse me, I think Hajia wants to speak because I see her hand is up.
Yes,
Right.
so sis,
yes,
it's a very hard bargain you're pulling because
I know.
our social lives is intertwined, especially in Nigeria with our religious beliefs. So if you say that nobody should talk about religion on this matter, it will be very, very hard. But like you said, you're starting with the youth. So we'll listen out and hear what they say, and that's fine. So because the whole base of this social issue right now is embellished in our faith, our individual faith. So, well,
however,
let's see how it goes. We'll try as much as possible not to, we'll try as much as possible not to use religion in our conversation.
Don't harp on it, and because a lot of people it can become controversial, you know how it is. So let us just be, perfect.
All right.
Can I say something?
Yes, Master Steve.
Listen, we need the live streaming link so that we share on our social media platform to invite others. Or can we share probably the live streaming too on our pages so that we also stream it live? So I don't know if it has been sent to our group page.
Let me
WhatsApp group.
Okay.
And it is exactly time.
Kitty, we can start.
Hello. Hello, good afternoon. Nera, how are you? I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ajayi Tumoke, and I am your host today. I know this conversation which we are going to be having on prostitution, a job or a forced lifestyle is something that has been of great concern to a lot of us, especially as parents, as brothers and sisters.
Titi, your mic, Titi.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this conversation on prostitution has been something that has been mind-boggling because I know that for a lot of us, even growing up as young children in Nigeria, there were a lot of things that we saw on the streets, a lot of behavioral patterns that we would have wondered that, is this normal? Does this what makes it right or wrong? Using sex as a means of living, a means of livelihood. Does it make any sense? And of course, we have heard a lot of stories as women community in Africa, a lot of stories about people who were forced into this kind of lifestyle from a very young age. And some have gone into this lifestyle for a very long time, and it seems as if there is no way out for any of them. And this is something that we want to have not just a discussion, but a solution. We want to see how we can change the narrative and help the lives of those involved in this all around the world. A women community in Africa is the advocacy arm of Beyond Mentors Community Care Initiative, an NGO which is dedicated to transforming the lives of women and children, most especially from the grassroots. And we are most concerned about the lives of women young girls and children becoming young mothers, because we know that every action taken by these people becomes something that continues as a generational situation. And this is why we have decided to host this amazing discussion today. And of course, we are very glad to have you all join us. Now, our participants for today, our speakers for today, is a host of wonderful, dynamic Nigerians who are committed and dedicated to nation building, to transforming the lives of young people and women all around the world. We have Hajia Khadija Abdullahi Iya, the CEO, SI Group of Companies, and the founder, Women Community in Africa. We also have Dr. Maimuna Salim, the Managing Director, Beyond Mentors Limited. She is going to be our moderator for today. We have Mr. Machid Malo. He is the Head Learning and Development Committee, Women Community in Africa. We have also present, we have the young ones, Ms. Joyce Okoye, who is the Communications One Officer for Search Inwards magazine. We also have Divine Martins, who is the Search Inwards Social Ambassador Secretariat, very, very involved in the lives of youths in Nigeria. Also with us is Mr. Architect Pius Agado, the CEO, Empire Group of Company. We also have speaking with us, Madame Modupe Adelawon. And this beautiful, dynamic, welcome, ma'am. Okay. Adelawon. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma. So we are grateful to God for this opportunity, and we are thankful to you for giving us this opportunity to hear from you about how much you feel and what you have seen in your communities, and how together we can change the narrative of the young people around us. But before we move into the discussion, I'd like us to watch a video. Admin, please, are you set?
Yes, I am.
Kindly share.
And were grieved. But what about those women in prostitution who weren't trafficked? Did those women willfully choose prostitution? And are they as empowered, independent, and sexually liberated as many would have us believe? What we've come to see through years of research and thousands of conversations with prostituted women across the world Most of us today have heard stories of the millions of women and children forced into prostitution through human trafficking. We're aware and we're grieved. But what about those women in prostitution who weren't trafficked? Did those women willfully choose prostitution? And are they as empowered, independent, and sexually liberated as many would have us believe? What we've come to see through years of research and thousands of conversations with prostituted women across the world is a very different picture of prostitution. And the truth of this picture is that prostitution can be more accurately described as the choice of those with the fewest choices. See, nearly without fail, women enter prostitution from a position of vulnerability. Many women, quote unquote, choose prostitution as underage children, some as young as 12. This so-called choice is often heavily influenced by prior sexual abuse. It is influenced by the unrelenting messages from the media, pop culture, and society that communicate that a woman's primary value is her sex appeal. Many prostituted women and children come from families broken by poverty, addiction, and mental illness. Many are homeless, orphaned, refugees, or suffer some form of social disadvantage. One formerly prostituted woman wrote about the sentiment of choosing prostitution. She said, "When I think about my choices, they were simply these: have men on and inside you, or continue to suffer homelessness and hunger. Take your pick." make your choice. Prostitution preys upon the most vulnerable in our society, coercing individuals through life circumstances to trade sex for the hope of a better life, or even to simply survive. If this is the truth of prostitution, then prostitution is not a choice. If we truly care about the dignity, safety, and empowerment of women and children, then we must fight for a world without prostitution. We must fight for a world where our most vulnerable are offered real choices. And we're asking you to choose this fight. Share this video. Tell the world the truth about prostitution.
Thank you very, very much. If you look at the history of prostitution, you find that it began a very, very long time ago, from 2400 BCE. And it is a social issue that has lingered for a very, very, very long time, almost as old as humanity itself. Now, this discussion we are having today will not be possible without this two wonderful people who have contributed greatly to the growth of women community in Africa. Please, I'd like you all to join me in making welcome our president, Madam Rashida Apahade, for her contributions. Thank you very much, ma'am. It is great to have you present. And our vice president also present here, Madam Adetone Dali. Thank you so much, ma'am, for everything.
Everyone, it's nice being here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Well done, everybody.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So right now we'll be handing over to our moderator for today's discussion, Dr. Maimuna Salim. You're very welcome, ma'am. Dr. Maimuna, ma'am, are you here with us? Okay, I think she's having some kind of challenge with her network. Okay, she's here with us. You can continue the conversation, ma'am.
Is she, or probably, I don't know if she's close to Hajia. Maybe you can share.
Okay.
Hello, Titi, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay, my internet, I think, is the problem. I do apologize. Okay, so we're going to start off with a discussion about prostitution and the effects that prostitution have on our society, especially to do with our youth and our women. So if we look at the video and just deriving from what the video has said, prostitution can be more accurately described as a choice of those with the fewest choices. And that makes you think, I mean, who are those with the fewest choices? So I just want to begin with Joyce, the participant, Mrs. Joyce. There are over 1 million known prostitutes in Nigeria. Some people may say that prostitution is on the increase because of the rate of unemployment, poverty, lack of education, yet there are known facts that there are high-class prostitutes working in brothels, etc. So Joyce, what is your opinion of the people who are, we say that, have no choice or fewer choices and who are marginalized and have now resorted to prostitution.
Hey, hi everyone. Good afternoon.
Okay.
Okay, so in response to that, I think I would say that there are people with choice and there are people who seemingly do not have choice. So in terms of those with high class brotels, I would like to say it comes from a point of let's say greed or the desire to acquire more. Because I know we have those that are sex trafficked. I know that we have those that are raped and then they get into prostitution and all that. But then I also know that there are people who have enough and excess, but then, the desire to live beyond their means can push them into seeking other means, even though if it's not that legitimate and moral of making money. So basically, I would like to say, yeah, there are people without choice, but there are also a lot more with choice. So it's something that's in the middle it's not balanced.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Joyce. Does anybody else want to contribute to that? I think Mrs. Madukwe.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice being here. My own contribution to what she just said is, I begin to wonder why prostitution when there are other job options. A lot of us wonder, and a lot of questions have been asked. Some people, the reason for people going into prostitution is usually, okay, I cannot pay my fees, I cannot pay my schools, I cannot take care of myself and all that. But the question still remains that why not other options? And that's why I will never agree that prostitution is a job. It could be a choice for some, but the question still lingers that why prostitution among other jobs? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Madukwe. So, you asked a very pertinent question. Why would somebody choose prostitution instead of another job? As we know, the rate of unemployment is so high. People are there fighting. It's a dog-eat-dog world. There's limited choices for those who do not know, who are not exposed to the nuances of being in the formal economy, do not understand how to go and get jobs, and the only thing that they find is suitable for them at that moment is probably to fall into prostitution. If you see nearly without fail, women enter prostitution from a position of vulnerability. Many women, quote unquote, choose prostitution, and you get girls as young as 12, right? And it's influenced by prior sexual abuse, or it's influenced by society, their community. And so why do you think an underage child will enter into prostitution, Madame Divine? And who is not mature enough to make practical decisions? I would like you, Divine, to answer that.
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
So the question is, why do you think an underage child would enter into prostitution who is not mature enough to make practical decisions?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. The number one thing is just poverty. I've seen cases where, in fact, there's an Indian documentary that shows that a father that went to borrow money from the owner of a brothel had to give his daughter in exchange, like collateral, like in exchange for the loan it took. So the thing is that for those that are mature, like the underage children that are going, is definitely as a result of poverty from parents that could not pay back these people and they are giving in exchange.
Thank you, Madam Divine, on that. Would anybody else like to elaborate on that? Maybe I get some insight from a gentleman, Mr. Osaho Pius. Mr. Pius? Okay, I think he's having a technical problem, so we can go on with Mr. Machif.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Maimuna. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Yes, we can
So
hear you.
I just want to add to the response Divine gave. You see, the level of inequality in our society is a very big factor that will lead to younger ones getting involved. And I've seen where girls of around the age of 13 to around 15 are involved in prostitution, because either some of them actually, you see that the parents will even advise them to go and make a way of getting money. And most of the easiest way for them to get money, of course, is prostitution. Of course, we have those that are forced into it. And that because the demand for young girls also is high in some areas and some quarters. And then there are those people that also trade these girls out for men who request for these younger ones. So particularly the level of inequality contributes. And again, we see younger ones getting involved because they are forced into it. It's not their choice, it is not their doing, and it's something that many of them wished they had never done in their life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Machif. I think Mr. Asaro is back. So I'd like to just, okay, sorry,
yes,
before we continue, sorry, Mr. Asaro, I just want us to get some house rules in place. I think we missed that. So please, whatever questions you have as the audience, you're welcome to put it down. And then at the end of the session, we will get you to answer accordingly, or we'll answer the questions accordingly. So Mr. Asaro, do you have a comment there?
Okay, yes. In addition to what the two previous speakers, that is Divine and Mr. Machif has said, I would also like us to come from the angle of the children don't have the option, because at a young, tender age, their sexual urge had been stimulated, either through rape, the one being mostly rape by most this type of children being faced with such things. What comes up next is self-esteem, and there are not the proper channels to to guide them through such, because even the system does not permit, does not allow these young ones, to come out openly to say that, oh, this was what happened to me. And and when this happens, you find out that these children grow up with the mindset that it might be right, or they are just encouraged to just continue. And it's some set of people from peer pressure. Okay, you are good in this. Why not just continue asking for money? What's prostitution? Prostitution is actually a sexual activity that requires an exchange of money or incentive. Now, looking at that and looking at these children, one would say that they didn't have an option, and the system did not put the right infrastructure or the right institution in place to help these children growing up. And and when this happens, you find that a lot of them, not just them now, it becomes something hereditary, that their children see this and think it's a normal thing to do, until they mix with the right set of people and they find out that, oh, it's not normal. That's my own point of view.
Thank you so much, Mr. Asao. So I want to just impress on one of the points that you made, that the young ones are the ones who are now, if they've been sexually abused or violated, they tend to now seek this opportunity to use their sexual behavior or sexual stance to be able to and go into prostitution. So what about those adults who knowingly go into prostitution? What about those adults who are not poverty-stricken, who are not marginalized, but make the conscious decision of going into prostitution? how do we now look at that as a disparity between the poverty-stricken and the ones who are not poverty-stricken? And I would like Hajia Khadija Abdullahi to answer that, please.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for the question. You
Good
just took the
afternoon.
words out of me. I was making some notes about what about the ones that who are not poverty-stricken, who have been in prostitution, who are into prostitution. There are so many of them that there are so many people who are basically not poverty-stricken, who decided that is a hookup, like I hear somebody in the audience said. People whose parents are well-to-do enough, yet they are into prostitution. So how do we come to terms with those kinds of issues? How do we go about what happened to them? We ask the basic question, why do they see prostitution as the norm? And one of the things that came to mind earlier on when some of the speakers were talking is, I think is our value system that have gone down the drain. I think the issue of consumerism is one of the things that the young people, I don't want to, I wouldn't say the young people alone, because I know that some people in our demography from maybe 40 or up to 60 years also see it as an avenue to hook up with people just because of some materialistic things they need to get, or how for them to show that they have these things and they need to get somebody to sponsor it. I think that we should look beyond all the things that, yeah, we agree that it's been established that some of these things happen because of, number one, somebody who has been abused and saw it that that's the only way to, it has caused a pattern for that person. And number two is about poverty. Some people do not have any choice, like the topic entails, that they do not have any choice, but they had no choice but to join prostitution. And then what about the ones who have the choices and are still choosing prostitution over honest jobs? There are so many people who are out there who are doing honest jobs and do not think that, they do not see prostitution as an option. We need to also x-ray all of those issues and see why do our people see it as the only option? Like, how do some people see it as the only option? You said earlier on, Madam Moderator, Dr. Mimuna, you said earlier on that the prostitution is worst right now in the northern part of the country. And why is that? These are social solutions that we need to begin to look at. Let's have social experiments and see that why are these things happening? Why are they on the rise? Why is it the internet, the social media showing off that is causing many people wanting to obtain things that they do not necessarily need? Or is it because of sheer greed? Or why are people getting into all of these things? I must stop here because I'm getting passionate about, we need to look at these issues there basically, and not just look at it on the surface. There has to be an underlying factor that is causing people to go into prostitution.
Thank you so much, Hajia Khadija Abdullahi. And you made some very pertinent points, and especially in regards to what are we going to do about it? We need to delve into it and understand what is driving them towards this kind of a solution to get out of poverty, or for them to fit into society. As you said, it could be social. It is social media. We know what is happening with the social media trend out there. I see somebody dressed up looking also good, having a lot of money, and I want to get that, but there's no other way. Okay, let me sell my body. Maybe that's the way I'll get it. So there's an exchange. They say prostitution is an exchange of this monetary for the sexual act. But when you look at it, right, and I want to ask this question to Madam Joyce. Oh, yes, Madam Joyce. So as a young girl, and you know you have friends out there, and you date an older guy, an older man, and you know, and he gives you have a relationship with him, and he gives you money in exchange for you sleeping with him, but you are not known as a prostitute. So what would you call that? Is it something that is wrong? Would you take the money knowing that, but I am having a relationship with this man, he's giving me gifts, he's giving me money. But people are now putting that as a form of prostitution. How would you respond to that?
Okay, so first of all, I would like to say it's nothing but prostitution. You know, no matter how much you sugarcoat it, I think at the end of the day, it's still going to be prostitution. I mean, there's a transaction going on. When you go to the market, meet a trader, oh, do you have pepper? Do you have tomatoes? And she gives you the pepper and you give her money. There's a transaction going on. It's the same thing with you, whether you are on the streets or you are in a hotel or you're an escort or whatever. So I think I would like to say maybe this is just classism. Maybe people just like to differentiate themselves from others. You know, I think we have something like thieves, petty thieves, and then armed robbers. People just like to give themselves class. So, but basically, they're exactly the same thing because there's a transaction going on. You are giving this person something and he is giving you something and there's an exchange going on. So basically, it's still the same prostitution going on. So, but a lot of people, I think for their ego, one, two, for the conscience, they want to feel, okay, at least I'm not on the street, at least it pays my bills. You know how people say that. But I think at the end of the day, it's just finding a way to sugarcoat things and make it seem more pleasant to their own ears. So yeah, basically it's still prostitution.
Thank you so much for that, Madam Joyce. Just on that note, I want to just ask, there's a question being asked by Titi. My question is, what is the difference between prostitution and an act called hookup? Because I've seen situations where young men and women doing fairly okay for themselves sleep around in the name of getting money, fame, and influence. And because they do not stand on the road at night, they do not see themselves as prostitutes. Mr. Machif, please, would you answer that question for me? Mr. Machif, are you there?
I'm here. I say, can you kindly come with the question again? I'd raised my hand earlier, so let me see if I can combine them.
Okay. The question is, what is the difference between prostitution and the act called hookup? Because you've seen situations where the young men and women decide that they want to hook up and they sleep around in the name of getting money, fame, and influence, but they're not standing on the street at night. So do you call it prostitution?
It is certainly prostitution. And thank God the question aligns to what I wanted to raise earlier. You see, the thing is lifestyle, and then the love for materialism has led a lot of people to give prostitution itself different name instead of standing on the street or hanging around in brothels or hotels. Now, the interesting part again, if you even look at what is happening in Nigeria, let me just give that. Do you know that many of our so-called actresses, or even the guys, either gigolos and they're also prostitutes? Most of them will use the Nollywood platform as a means to showcase themselves, and that they'll start getting attention, and people are calling them through their numbers. They have managers who connect them to big boys and big girls to make money. And it is this same lifestyle that's even, it has gone down to even our universities and tertiary institutions. You have girls like that functioning that way. In our society today, we still have younger ladies too doing the same thing. So that is I'll call it an advanced form of prostitution. So they only call themselves hookup girls or hookup boys, and how people will network them to whoever has money to pay them, but it is the same thing as prostitution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Machi, for that. So somebody had made a comment, Ms. Amina Al-Hassan. She says, drugs is a culprit. Many girls are going into prostitution to get money for their drug habits. They don't have jobs, but have their bodies to offer just to get a hit. This includes young boys and young men, by the way. So I want to ask the next question to Madame Divine. Do you believe that sex education and prostitution should be a subject taught in school? And why? Madame Divine?
Yeah, sorry, my internet keeps taking me out. I believe it should be, because most people that go into prostitution, I don't think it's not like they don't have sex education. I will not say that it's not effective, but I feel like it should be not only in schools should it be taught. I think it should be a continual learning process, that prostitution is not just the way out, and then the ripple effects of prostitution should also be a constant awareness, not just in schools, but it should be introduced in schools, like primary schools first.
Thank you so much for that. So my next question goes to Mr. Osaho. I'm just going to make a comment first, right? They say prostitution is not a choice. If you truly care about the dignity and safety and empowerment of children and women, we must fight for the world without prostitution. We must fight for a world where our most vulnerable are offered real choices. Prostitution. So I want to ask the question: Is prostitution a self-empowerment tool? It's a means of survival, we know, but is it a self-empowerment tool for the victims?
It's a brilliant question. I think it's important to the discussions that Ms. Divine, Mr. Machif, and Ms. Joyce answered. Now, first of all, let's ask this question. Prostitution, are we dealing with it as a moral culture? That's something that's immoral or something that's illegal? Then we can answer some bits of questions. Now, do you know that presently in Nigeria, there's an association which is registered with the CAC called Nigerian Sex Workers, something of sex workers, some corporation of corporation. You can Google it. It's started by someone called Mrs. Amaka also. Now, do you know that there's something called an International Day for Sex Workers? In the Nigerian Constitution, which we have now, there's nothing against the act called prostitution. But it's only, if you check section 223, 224, 225 of the Penal Code, what is from that in Nigeria are people being used to further or sexual activity, then have to be recompensed for that. So motels or pimps, jiggle, all those ones, if once you are being found to be doing that, you are arrested and treated as a criminal. And note that it's just 100 naira. You've been sanctioned for 300 naira. And if it's done for a second time, you'll be 6 months reprimanded in the system. So now, when you look at it, are we looking at it as something, an immoral culture or an illegal culture? Because if you're saying it's illegal, they can boldly tell you that, anyone can boldly tell you, and any of them can boldly tell you that I'm registered in an association and it is seen as a legal act. That the police cannot arrest me for prostitution, but they can only arrest me if they see I'm aggressively asking a client for an incentive for this sexual activity. So now, when we look at it legally, it's a form of empowerment.
Correct.
But morally, it's not. Because which family, let's be sincere with ourselves, if one of us, a child of ours, says that he wants to marry someone or she wants to marry someone and says that his profession is prostitution. Morally, none of us will agree. But legally, it's we are not supposed to discriminate. So when we are looking at it in terms of an empowerment now, that is where it's a bit dicey. Because most of them, you find out that some of them are single parents who are involved in this. They are single parents. They are children who have siblings or who have members to take care of. I'll give you a typical example. There is someone, and this is directly linked to this, someone I know. There's someone here in Nigeria, in this Abuja, that is highly placed in one of these institutions that he told his niece that you have this thing between your leg. People are using it to build house, and you are saying you want to use it to love.
Yeah. Wow.
Now he's encouraging her that it's a type of self-empowerment. I'm talking of, he's not begging for money. His children are out of this country, are schooling out. His wife is out of this country. So he's not begging. But why can't you help us instead of this thing use as self-empowerment? So that is where it's coming from. That is wrong. Now, the solution should be with the families. So going back to what Ms. Ben has said, that's why you don't see reacting to it now. That's why you don't see such things discussed in the classrooms, because the constitution is against it. So unless our constitution is revised, which I think it's going to be hard, because since we already have an international day celebrating these individuals. But mind you, why I said it's a moral thing now. If you look at it,
thank you so much, Mr. Osaro. I appreciate your comment.
Okay.
So based on your comment, Hajia Khatija Abdullahi says, I beg, I think it's, she says, I beg to defer to the issue of prostitution being legal. If it's legal, why would the law enforcement be running after them? If somebody would like to comment on that?
Can I comment on that?
Okay.
Yes, madam.
So I beg to differ that prostitution is being legalized, and having an International Day for Sex Workers does not mean that it is a day that will encourage sex workers. International Day for Sex Workers is meant to have advocacy and awareness programs to sensitize people about the lives of the sex workers, the things that they have been going through, the pains that they have been going through. So International Day for Sex Workers is not meant to encourage them, it's meant to discourage them and for people to be aware that they exist. And most of them exist not because they want to be there, they exist because they are forced to. That's why the International Day for Sex Workers has been there. And again, we cannot say in our laws that sex workers are being allowed. If we know about the raids that happened a few years ago in Abuja, where the law enforcement were running after the prostitutes in around Jabi and Utaku. We know that it is wrong. It is in our constitution that it is wrong. It is not something that we would, that is being taken as legal. So let's not confuse that, please. And another thing that I need to add quickly, Madam Moderator, we need to understand that our value system, there was something that Divine said that sex education should be taught frequently. I think that it should be discussed at the dinner table this day. If we really want to curb it, we need to start letting our children understand the importance of what their body and what it means to have the bodies that they have been given, both the boys and the girls, how they cannot abuse the shrine of their life, because that's where everything that happens to them in their lives goes through. They cannot just have illicit sex affairs and see that, yes. Hello?
Hello?
Yes? Can you hear me?
Continue.
Yes,
continue,
they
ma'am.
cannot, their bodies must be respected. They need to understand that sex is a private thing. It is not something that can be commercialized or transactional. Sex is something that is innate, that is special. And if we as mothers and parents are not telling our children the importance and the sacredness of sex, we're not going to go anywhere. Because now that people are normalizing it and being complacent about it, it is a dangerous thing that goes back to haunt us. It's going to affect all of us if we do not do anything about it. So thank you for this program, and thank you for bringing up this program.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Khatija. So, you know, riding on what you said, there was a question here by Salcom. I think you've answered some of it. However, she says they also she's seen a mother that encourages daughters to bring out and bring her nice things from prostitution, which she knows that her daughters are now involved in that. So it also shows that parents are now resorting to using their girls for their worldly or material pleasures or gains. And that's the only way they think is the way out because of the unemployment and poverty that we're facing. So when we speak of the issue about prostitution being taught in school and educating them in school, and Ms. Divine said it should be a continuation with the home, the parents, you know, the community itself, and giving them the advantages and disadvantages. Because if we look at the highest rate of HIV at the moment, it's sitting between the ages of 21 and 35. It's a sad state of affair because these women, these girls are going out there and selling themselves, and they're sleeping with these married men who in turn go home and infect their wives. So it's a ripple effect and a cycle that is continuing in our society. And we're not looking at the impact that it's going to have in the future. So in saying that, I would like to continue on the next point with Mr. Machif. Mr. Machif, so how would you relate prostitution to gender-based violence?
Okay, thank you so much. Because one of the key things to promoting gender-based violence is when young girls are on the street unprotected, they're on their own trying to eke a living via prostitution, they become easy targets by praise. That is men who would also want to cheat on them. And most times they get raped. Of course, by extension, we know how some of these girls are taken out of the country like slaves, and then they are abused or they are used, and then, you know, they totally become victims of gender-based violence. Now, all these things are supposed to form part of the kind of education we give to our parents, to the society, as a means of reducing gender-based violence in general. So if a young girl who is out and she's asked to go and hawk, let's see, even if she's not out for prostitution itself, she's going out to hawk to sell things. In the end, what do we get? We get men abusing them, we get men taking advantage of them because of the fact that they are out to make a living. We also have matured girls who are normally doing the prostitution itself as a business. But then in many instances we've seen or have heard of men taking advantage of them. Some even ended up becoming victims of ritual activities. So by and large, gender-based violence is one of the fallouts to prostitution, and it needs to, in a very large scale, be reduced. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Machif. I would like Mrs. Khatija Abdullahi to please also elaborate on that, because you are a gender-based violence advocate. You deal with the youth in the gender-based violence platforms. So how would you relate it to the prostitution?
So one of the snacks that we have with bridging bringing, let me use the word, bringing gender-based violence into prostitution is the fact that some of these children have been taken outside their homes or maybe outside the country to go, and it's called sex trafficking, to go and prostitute out of their, which is not in their own volition. So in this aspect, how do we stop those people who are already a cartel and powerful people? How do we stop them from continuing and allowing these things to happen? Because some of these children go outside, they are sex trafficked, and then nobody is there, and then sometimes they are repatriated back to the communities, back to Nigeria, and they are left with nothing else to do. How then do we, as advocates of gender-based violence, see how we can reconstruct and see how we can get counselors to heal these children who want to earn honest living? These are questions that we as advocates need to sit down and continue to give awareness and have talks like this and have be in rooms like this to sensitize people about. We also need to understand, there was somebody that mentioned earlier on that talked about addiction, drug addiction, and how these children maybe on drugs are trying to feed their addiction with monies that they get from prostitution. All of these things, people need to heal. We need to have safe places where we can get these children into those safe places and see how we can get counselors and therapists to work on them and heal them back into being productive human beings in the society, instead of using their body, letting them understand how to respect their body. Another thing is, in gender-based violence, you find out that children who have been abused as children, when they grow up, they see sex as normal, something that they can use as an exchange for whatever they need. How do we begin to cure these children and making them understand? There's a lot of work to be done in this field in gender-based violence, and this is why we as women community in Africa have come together to magnify our voices from different corners of Africa, to see that we have different advocates fighting against this act of prostitution, of being abused to try and save our children and even our boys from these kinds of acts. I think
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And you made some very critical points there. And we have just a few minutes left, but before we round off, I just want ask Mr. Pius his opinion on the male prostitution and what is happening out there. They say that there's a lot of older women who are now getting younger boys to their sugar mamas and paying them for the sexual activities and sexual fantasies. So what is your opinion on that? And I mean, have you been privy to see it happening? And let us know about what your opinion is on that, please.
Okay, thank you once again. I really appreciate this opportunity. Now, if I may, let me go back to a bit to where because I had not finished my discussion earlier. You know, when we look at the Nigerian Constitution, when I said that it did not handle the act of prostitution properly, that's why because it did not handle it properly. That's why if you look at critically, our religious bodies decided to handle it themselves. In the northern part of Nigeria, that is under the Islamic law. It is abhorred. But you don't see it reflect in the southern part. You don't. And that is where a moral situation where we have to deal with moral culture, which has to be dealt with morally. Now, the male child is also a victim of this. is also a victim. That's why you hear some men are gay and everything. Now, we find that the same thing applies to them, that when male children actually raped at a young age, and so they carry those things in their minds, or you find them, as of now, if you look critically, you find that some institutions even encourage such, all boys secondary school, and which was never the plan when this was instituted, the plan of the that is all boys secondary school. But now it's encouraged in this institution among the peers without the knowledge of the institution. And when these young men leave such places, we find that the society encourages them. And it is mostly encouraged in the West, but magnified in the West, but under the that is under the radar within African countries, which is not good. Because if we look at it critically, within ourselves, we say the boy child has a responsibility, not just to
30
himself,
seconds, sir.
but to a family.
You have 30 seconds.
He's going to one day, okay, which he is one day going to actually be responsible for. So if we don't treat this now, that as it is, that it is a moral decadence, which should be treated like, just like how we have the WCA, we should be treated. It's going to spread. It's going to spread. Really
Thank you
bad.
so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Osaro. I really
here.
appreciate it. So because of time, I'm just going to go on to the audience. I see there are a couple of people who have their hands up and would like to contribute. So Ms. Jade, I think you could go ahead, please. Ms. Jade,
hello,
are you there?
hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Thank you, Mrs. Jade.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So I was just going to what Jack Khadija had highlighted on what I wanted to say earlier on. Prostitution is not legal in Nigeria, so there are penalties for it. In fact, in the northern part of Nigeria, prostitution is outrightly forbidden. It's outrightly prohibited. You cannot have brothels or have people running around the streets in the name of hookup, prostitution, whatever modern name it is given now. And then secondly, there was something one of the speakers said and said most of the people who do that are single parents. I like to disagree with that. Most of the girls you find on the street, some of them are within the ages of 14. In fact, some are as young as 12. You find girls 12, 13 years on the streets. They're not single parents. It's just that it's now a common trend where you have families who push their daughters to the streets and make those daughters their breadwinners, so to speak. So they're expected to go out and fend for their families via the use of their bodies. So I'd like to see it as a decline in our values, because I remember when we were growing up as kids, if as a child you brought something home that your parents did not provide, everybody in the community will be against that child. In fact, it will become like a community or family meeting. They'll call a family meeting on your head and sit you down to have some serious talk. They want to know what you have, where was it gotten from, who gave it to you. But that's it. It's already in decline. Our values have taken in a complete nosedive. Our values as a people, because you now have families encouraging their daughters, some mothers particularly, encouraging their daughters to follow those who can give them something that can benefit the family. And then you have some other people, some peer-to-peer sort of indoctrination. So maybe your mates, 15, 16, 17, they're all using iPhones, and you, the seemingly naive young teenage girl, is not using iPhone. They look at you as the person who is not following the trend. You're not following the trend, so you're not willing to go out there and, prostitute your body. Yeah, to get something. So I think it's something that we'll have to continue having a conversation around, how we can see our communities have conversations to reinstall our values as Africans. The fact that there's an International Sex Workers Day, we are Africans. Here, we do not do sex work as an occupation. I think these are some of the things that when the laws are drafted, the draftsmen put into consideration the fact that we have a peculiar culture and we have peculiar religions as Africans. So we cannot continue to follow the trend the rest of the world is doing, because that is detrimental to us as a people.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
I
think that's what I would say.
Thank you. And I think we have Madam Rashida also wanted to comment. Please, 1 minute, Madam Rashida.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mimuna. The time is short. But for questions, I will have just just 1 minute. But I would like us to improve on this when next we're having such the coordinator to just speak on the force here. As Nigerians, as Africans, we know causes of prostitution. Then we can dwell more on solutions. What will be our role as gender advocates? How does it affect the work that we do? Who do we pay advocacy to? What do we do? How do we encourage families? Because we also work with grassroots, we work with schools, we work with different communities. What do we tell them? How do we approach this issue from their angle? So that we don't continue. If we want to start talking about the causes from here to tomorrow, there are numerous, from economic to social and all those things. But let us see how we can help the society we are in to cope this menace. That is what I would like us to dwell on next time we are having such a discussion, so that we go and step it down in our various organizations.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rashida. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much to all our participants. So I would like to round up on some points that were made, pertinent points that were made, especially with regards to the legalization of prostitution. And we said, as we say, it's not a job. It's actually a forced situation. Sometimes with certain individuals and other individuals, it's a choice. And here we are sitting as we are WCA and we are gender-based violence advocates. What are we to do to try and now try and help eliminate the stigma, this kind of behavior in our society, this education in inverted commas, that girls feel like this is an empowerment for them to go and get into prostitution, to be able to make money and to live to the norms of society. And what are we as gender-based violence advocates doing in our within our communities and our greater communities, especially to advocate and sensitize our boys and girls, because it's not only about the girl child, it's also about the boys. The boys need to know how to behave towards the woman, so that eventually when they do grow up and become men, they will not use these tools as money and gifts to now drive these girls towards prostitution. So as a team of gender-based violence advocates, we need to look at better solutions and trying to assist, because government is there. There are systems in place, there are policies in place for against prostitution. However, we know that it is taking place everywhere around us on a daily basis. Social media is always going to be there to influence the younger ones, influence the girls in our society and the boys in our society. What is it that we are going to do to help them to understand that there are certain values that you need to carry with you and in society to try and not get sucked in and drawn into the stigma, into this virus of being a prostitution, because it's a virus. It just carries on and it carries on, and it's not ending, and it's becoming much more rife in our society now because of the pressure and the peer pressure for the young ones to live up to the lives of those who have money, those who are social influence, etc. I want to make a point here on the social myth that they say social stigma is the most harmful aspect of prostitution. And they say women don't want to be prostitutes. That's a fact. And the shame and the stigma of prostitution persist despite legalization. Although they would have been earning retirement benefits if they registered, women in this world did not register as legal prostitutes. They are ashamed to be publicly known as prostitutes. Regardless of its legal status, women would prefer to get out of prostitution and usually feel ashamed of it. Thank you very, very much for those who've been listening and all the comments that we've had. Thank you so much to our panelists for all your contribution. It was fantastic. If you have any other questions, we can put it through onto our platform on the WCA platform. For those who are not on our WCA platform, I think, Titi, if you would like to share a link to them to join our WCA platform, and we can have further discussions on it. Thank you, everybody. Please have a beautiful weekend and a fantastic afternoon. Thank you. Titi, hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Very, very much to our dear panelists. Thank you, our dear moderator. Thank you for our beautiful participants for all the comments. It has been a very beautiful interactive session. And of course, we have learned a lot today. But as we have all agreed, this conversation is not yet over. We're going to continue until we are able to put together a solution that will put an end to this menace of prostitution across all spheres of our society. Thank you so much for joining in. Do have a very beautiful weekend ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Bye. Have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
What I want to even say is that, do you know that